Okay, TikTok, the sound is for people who were born in the 60s or 70s or earlier. Let's see your faces. Let's be proud of who we are. Let's be proud of aging.
Hello and welcome to Rockin' Elders, the podcast. My name is Jan.
And my name is Dee.
And today we're going to talk about something a little less serious. We're going to talk about growing up in the 70s.
Yeah.
Being young in the 70s. Because we were.
Yes. Best time of my life. I really had so much fun. It wasn't the wonder years because we were young, but it was the coming of age years.
Mm-hmm.
From, young teen to, 18, 19 was great. So much fun.
And those of you with a modicum of any sense will realise that I'm over here in UK and Dee is in America. So I think there is going to be some differences. So let's start back. Let's start with our furthest memory of being in school, what we did in school, how your not private school, how your first school was.
Yeah, I did public school. I was a public school child here on a small island, but the best years I can think of was maybe the first year in high school, freshman year. So leaving a middle school and you're still a kid, and then all of a sudden you're up in high school and seeing seniors on the daily as a young person, and just trying to find our way. Like, what am I doing? And it was a casual. The 70s, I don't know how it was like for you over there, but the 70s were very casual. I think as boomers, we came in at the end of the Woodstock era, and then the next generation began. So we weren't, peace, love, and happiness in Woodstock. We were going into, not disco era, but we were going into a whole different, brand of music, and but daily life at high school. What a big change as a freshman.
Yeah. So a freshman is, let me get this right, a freshman is when you leave primary school. We call it primary school over here.
Right.
And you go to secondary school, yeah?
Yes.
So you're about 11?
No. Well, as a freshman, high school for me was ninth grade.
Ninth grade?
Ninth grade was a freshman. We didn't really categorize the secondary school, meaning like from 6th, 7th, 8th grade. That we called it middle school. So that was middle school years, which would be the 11, 12, 13, 14, right around in that age. And I was kind of thinking of, that was okay. I had some sickness in there in the middle school years, so it's kind of a blank for me. I don't have that many memories, but high school, woohoo!
Yeah.
Wow.
I still have some memories, but I've got a fairly unconventional upbringing because I was brought up in care. So my first memories of school, I do remember being in, we call it primary school. So over here you get nursery school, then you get primary, and then you get middle school, and then you get secondary school.
Okay.
So I do remember, like in primary, but the things that I remember are not so much about school related, but more about being taken to school in a minibus, because we were the kids in the home, so we would be driven to the school in a minibus, okay? And I guess we were probably seen as quite different, even though we didn't really notice it at the time. But when you look back, I think you realize that, yeah, perhaps people did, or other kids did see you as different, and because you didn't come in with your mum and your dad, or or your grandma.
Do you think you were treated differently because of that? Looking back, do you think that because as we get older in school, especially, like you're saying, secondary, me with high school, kids are very judgmental. I'm sure that hasn't changed over the years. And I just wonder, did you ever feel like you were looked at or treated differently because you did arrive in a bus from somewhere else that wasn't an established, mother father unit of what people see as a family? Do you think that, or no, or do you think that nobody said like, oh great, they're here?
Maybe I was just a bit stupid, but I didn't notice.
Okay, that's great. No, that sounds very 70s. It does.
Especially, I mean, at the time, I grew up in a very rural area, and there was only one village school. Now, because it was a village, and because the home I was brought up in was big, so there were quite a few kids. I think I'm right in saying there was about 40 kids. Okay.
Oh wow.
And
Wow.
we all went to the primary school, so most of us came from there. Most of the kids in the home went to a very small village school. So that could have been a reason why I didn't really notice. But I do remember one memory of looking towards, and this sounds very cliche, I know, but I remember looking through the fencing and seeing one of my friends walking off with obviously their mother, and thinking, oh, well, I don't do that. And I know that it must have meant something to me at the
It
time,
must
because
have.
it
Yes.
stuck with me. I still remember that. And I was in primary school then, so I must have been under 10.
Okay, that's a strong memory then to keep, if you know what that feeling is back then, to say, I don't have that.
Yeah. And I do realize now that my the other memory I have of that school, and that was like a primary village school, was when I got in trouble. And we used to walk from the village school to the village hall for our dinner, for school dinners. And I remember walking, in crocodile fashion, with the rest of the school. And for some reason, I threw a stone into the road. No idea why I did it, Dee.
Okay.
No idea why I did it.
You're a kid. That's what we do. We just throw stuff. You got in trouble for that?
So much trouble. I actually got, because back in the day, we used to have the cane. Did you have the cane?
No.
We had the cane or the slipper. And I was hauled, and remember, I'm under 10. I was hauled before the headmistress, and I remember holding my hand out and her whacking me over the hand.
Oh my God.
With a slipper.
With a slipper. So
yeah. And the funny thing is, though, I wasn't a bad kid. I was a good girl.
Well, I just don't. That sounds so what's the word? Dickensian, like something out of Charles Dickens. Like you hold your hands out because you made a mistake, and they're going to slap your hands with a ruler or something.
Oh yeah.
We never had that kind of behavior in any school I went to. No.
Oh, we did. And also, they'd also make you bend over the desk, and they'd
What?
whack you with the cane or the slipper.
Oh my God. I
Yeah,
can't
I grew up
imagine.
around that. Yeah. I don't think I
I
ever got the cane, but I know I got the slipper, and I think it was across my fingers.
But
Yeah.
what could a kid actually do wrong that you would have to humiliate them in front of the other childrens to make a
Oh,
point?
no, they wouldn't do it in front of other kids. You'd have to
Uh,
go to the school office. You'd go to the office.
th-
You'd go to the head teacher's office.
then it makes even less sense. Like, why
Mm.
do it in private?
I
You
remember
know?
being quite upset.
Yeah. God. Oh, that's
Um,
terrible.
especially as I think, I was quite a good girl.
Yeah.
So I have to say, my memories of childhood, specifically around that time,
Mm-hmm.
I still have those memories, which I'm pleased about, but
Mm-hmm.
they are very different, I think, to say your memories.
Yeah.
You were brought
No.
up in
Yeah.
a normal home, with the parents and
Oh,
with parents and that.
I didn't think about that part. You see, I'm looking at things from a stereotypical family unit and
Yeah.
how everything is done. So you in a different circumstance,
Mhm.
maybe they obviously looked at it differently and they had very strict standards. If you're
Oh, yeah.
saying you were a good kid and then you got a slap on the wrist or the hand or the behind because you threw a rock or you pushed somebody, that's not even in my universe of thinking that
Oh,
would
yeah.
even happen at our age in that time
Yeah.
frame of the world. I can't
Yeah.
imagine that. Wow.
I know.
Wow.
It's just something that you knew, but I must say, in the home, I was never punished in that way. If you were punished, and I only remember once ever being punished again under the age of 10, and I don't even know what I did wrong, but every week we used to have, say it was on a Friday, you'd have
Mhm.
like the ice cream van would come to the home,
Oh,
and it would drive into, like, we had a sweeping driveway, and in would come this ice cream van with the loud music,
yeah, yeah,
and all us kids would, go running out,
yeah,
and we'd all have to
yeah.
stand in the queue for our ice cream.
Right.
Okay. One day, one day, I must have been naughty because I wasn't allowed to have my ice cream. I was
Oh
so
God.
upset.
Oh
I
no.
remember that I was upstairs, so I must have been naughty because
Mm.
they never allowed you to be upstairs during the day. So, and I remember looking out of the window and
Mhm.
seeing this ice cream van pulling
Oh.
in, and I wasn't allowed to have my ice cream.
Oh. Oh, now see, I'm such a marshmallow. We didn't experience that. I didn't personally. And, other kids that I grew up with, I never heard of, anybody getting that kind of treatment for being naughty. I mean,
Oh
how naughty
yeah.
can you be at that age? How can you
Well,
imagine if they
I
did
did
that
throw a
now?
stone. I threw a stone, but I remember specifically,
Hmm.
I remember so vividly that it was more like I rolled it into the road. I didn't
Yeah.
hurl it. I sort of rolled it into the road,
As
and oh
kids
my
do.
God. And I can't even remember what I did wrong to not get my ice cream that time.
And probably nowadays in public school anyway, if you look, at a kid wrong, you're in trouble. Never mind trying to
Oh,
discipline kids nowadays. Everybody's, pardon me, everybody's a spoiled brat from what I can see. And there's no
mhm.
respect from what I can see. No, I'm not in school, but just what I see on media, social media, kids pushing teachers, knocking stuff down, and they just walk out of the room. We would never even have considered such behavior. And it's
No.
certainly not because we would have got disciplined with a cane or a ruler or something. It's just you just didn't do it.
Yeah.
You just didn't.
I think, without going too deeply into it, because I think
Mhm.
this would be a very good topic to do another podcast on, the
Okay,
difference
cool.
between the children, today's children and children in the 70s. I think that would be a really good topic.
Yeah.
But because I've got 4 grandchildren, and I see, and also I worked in a school for 8 years. I worked in a secondary school for 8 years. So I saw what went on. And
you have firsthand knowledge.
Yeah.
You were there. You were there.
And I have to tell you that I had, on more than one occasion, people said to me, Jan, I think your expectations may be too high. And I think that was because of my upbringing, because I know what's right and what's wrong. And, so, yeah. Anyway, let's get back to ours.
Okay.
So, were you a girly girl in your secondary school?
I think in middle school, which I guess what you're calling secondary school, I didn't really, at that age before, let's say 16, I think we're all trying to find out who we are. I wasn't specifically a girly girl, meaning, I thought I was a princess walking around or anything. But I did have, I wanted to play sports of some kind. Now, all my friends did. And I wanted to play softball. I wanted to play, just any golf, anything that they had going on. Just not that I was specifically, talented in the sports area, but I really wanted to play like team sports. My dad had very specific gender roles for us girls. Now, him being growing up the way he did, small town, because they lived here their whole life, but small town, and in the 40s and 50s, specific gender roles. So he said, girls don't play softball, girls don't play golf. And so I wasn't able. So as my friends were joining all these great things, I was on the sidelines, like clapping and watching the games and stuff, but I wasn't allowed to play. My parents did not allow me to step outside and do something physical. I could have done gymnastics, but I didn't want to do that.
Can you tell me? Can you tell me what softball is? What
softball is just like baseball, except the ball is larger and it's softer. So it's still a hard ball, but it's not a small baseball.
And do you hit it with a bat?
Yes, you hit it with a bat.
Okay.
Yes.
And then you run round. Do you run
around? Yes, you run around the bases. And
I think we call that, I think over here we called that rounders.
Okay. So that was the main one that I wanted to play, was softball. It looked like fun. I thought, I can throw pretty good, and I would have fun as a team. My friends were on the team, and it was all girls. It's girls softball or girls rounders. And my friends were there, and I had to literally sit in the stands and watch them play if I wanted to, but I couldn't, I couldn't do it. My dad just was very adamant that girls don't do that.
That is unbelievable.
Yeah.
But didn't you have like PE lessons when you were at school where you could do those games?
During gym class, we all had to do, like pull-ups, and we had to run, and we had to, play basketball and things like that. But that was different. As an extracurricular activity after school, he had it in his mind that girls you can be in the choir, which I was. I was in the chorus. I was in an a cappella. Can you imagine?
Wow.
Yeah. You'd never know it after all these years of smoking. But, I joined what I could, but, I wasn't a math person. And all schools have their after school activities, the math league, the girls and guys that are in the audiovisual department. That didn't interest me, but I really wanted to play, and I wanted to be a cheerleader. Never made it. Being a cheerleader was okay because you're on the sidelines looking cute while the guys are playing the sport. My dad thought that was okay.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That is so old-fashioned.
I know. So old-fashioned. So conservative. Yeah. But back then, it was very specific gender roles. And compared to nowadays, it's night and day, really. But growing up with that, maybe that's why I'm very open to everything in the world. If you want to do something, then do it. If you feel like you want to do this and play the violin or play the piano or play football or whatever you want to do, no matter who you are, you know,
Do
boy
it.
or girl, do it. And I'll support you doing it.
Yeah, that's so different than my story. My story, when I was in sort of round about that age, once I'd got to secondary school, was sports, and more sports.
See,
I
totally
did
jealous.
what you really wanted to do.
I'm
And
jealous.
luckily, I was good at it. I was one of the fastest runners in the school. So I spent my life running.
That's awesome.
I lived for PE. I lived for sports day.
Ugh.
And I just lived and breathed sport.
Oh my God. I wonder if that's why I didn't like gym so much, because even though I would have fun, you know, playing basketball or something like that, activities with a group or something, I knew after school I couldn't participate. So I was like, I don't know why I'm bothering with this. I'm never going to be, you know, it doesn't matter if I'm good or not. It's not going to matter to anybody. So, and I also think that turned into, for me personally, I am not a confrontational person as a rule, but I also don't care if I win or not. I don't care. I don't care if I win. If we play cards, if we play Scrabble, if we're doing anything, I am not competitive. I will say, okay, you win. You win.
Unlike me, I have to win. I have to win.
See, I would totally go, you win.
Oh, I used to run. I was good at everything. I used to sprint really fast. I used to be able to do like the long distance. I ran for my
Damn.
county. And I was bloody good.
Damn.
And I used to swim a lot. I wasn't in any clubs or anything, but I joined an athletics. No, I joined an athletics club, but then I didn't carry on with that because my real love was football. I love
No
football.
kidding.
So I got on an all-girls football team.
My dad would have never let me. Nope.
Yeah, and it's called soccer over there, I think.
Yeah. Yes.
And I lived and breathed football. So I used to play for a girls' team, Leighton Orient Girls or Ladies, it was called. And that was my life. That was, I was
That's
like
fantastic.
a whippet. I
That's
was like a
fantastic.
whippet. And it didn't even have to be encouraged. I just loved to do it.
That's what I missed. That's what I
The
missed. I wasn't
feeling-
encouraged to do something like that. It wasn't like life or death if I couldn't do these things, but I wanted the opportunity if I had an interest. But I just, my family, my parents just did not support that part. That might have been a little bit tomboyish, but that's that age too. You're trying to figure it out. And I wonder if that's once I get to high school, I'm like, well, if I can't do these other things that I really love, well, I'm going to try a little bit of fashion maybe. So it was the 70s and I had my bell bottoms. I'm sure I still got them. I love them, but I started to embroider. I started to embroider now the 70s again. So it's kind of like hippie, kind of, but not really. But I started to embroider things, and that kind of became my signature in high school. And after high school, they're like, oh, Dee, I love that shirt. Can you show me how to, do a chain stitch?
Yeah.
Because my mother taught us to sew and do embroidery and things. So, but I found some pleasure in that. And I think that set me off in my mind of how I wanted other people maybe to perceive me. I think that's where my identity of maybe being girly started. Because I had to refocus. I can't just sit there all day, sing for an hour in class, and then just do nothing. And so I just...
You said something about how, other people perceived you.
Yeah.
Was that an issue for you growing up?
Yeah, it was an issue. I grew up in a very small town. could be another subject too sometime, down the road.
Okay.
But I grew up in a very small town where I'm living now, where we've retired to. I'm back home finally. But there were very specific, what's the word I'm looking for? We didn't have a big cultural mix here. We had a lot
Mhm.
of Irish, had a lot of Portuguese,
Mhm.
some Italian, not many people of color.
Mhm.
And this is a colonial town. This town was started in 1639. So all the way that people behaved, they had different parts of the city, probably like just about anywhere for where that group lived. Like the Irish lived in the Fifth Ward, the Portuguese were in a different part of town. Probably not by choice. It's just that's how
Yeah.
the town was. It's from one generation to the next. They either stay, or move out of
Mhm.
town or something.
Mhm.
But if, especially in the 70s, we're talking about, I'll just bring up fashion, like Cheryl Tiegs and Gia. So you're looking at blonde, in television and magazines, blonde, blue eye, beautiful, wholesome California type girls as far as looks go. And then there's me, short, looking more Portuguese than anything else. And I never felt like I could. You'll have to edit this out. Okay. Um, anyway, as I saw myself as a young teen or starting high school, I felt less than. I thought I should look like that. And I had lots of curly hair at the time, and it affected my identity, the
Mm.
media at that time. So I thought I've got to do something that sets me apart. I'm not a cheerleader. I'm not in, sports. I couldn't find where I fit in.
Yeah.
So in my mind, I decided I'm going to set myself apart just even in this little bit to say, oh, that's Dee with those cool jeans that she did or something. Does that make sense? And not only an
Yeah.
identity, but for someone to acknowledge me. I
Yeah.
I don't know.
I find that so interesting because, as I said, my upbringing was very different,
Right.
and I think it's something that sort of comes from within, whether
Hmm.
you feel as if you belong somewhere. And I
Yeah.
think
Hmm.
my sense of belonging
Hmm.
was being in the home. As weird as that sounds,
Doesn't sound weird at all.
yeah, that was my sense of belonging.
Okay.
So I'm just trying to think back and think, did I ever feel that I that I wanted to be different, that I wanted to be accepted? I guess because I was so sporty,
Hmm.
I think that with and I have to say it was an
Hmm.
all girls school.
Oh, that's a big difference now. That
Yeah,
that that explains a lot. It
yeah,
does. You didn't have the day to day mixing with young men of the same age and a little bit older, because as a freshman in ninth grade, we're going to school with seniors who are 3 years older. And when you're
yeah.
that young, it's a big deal. So you're trying to carve out how you fit in with this, male female growing up thing, or how are you going to stand out when the norm at that time was, tall, blonde, very, you know, fresh faced, because that's what we saw in the
You
media
know,
and on
I
TV.
do understand what you mean because the school, I don't know what year I was in,
Hmm.
but there used to be a boys' school over the way. Yeah.
Okay. Yep.
And they joined together.
Oh.
At one point, they joined together. So
Hmm.
it became a mixed school.
Hmm.
I hated it
You
because
did.
all my friends, remember, they're all girls. Yeah.
Yeah.
All
Hmm.
my friends are then acting very differently. They're acting like,
Yes.
and they're talking about sex all the time. I'm not interested in sex. I wasn't interested in sex. I was interested in my next race. I was interested in going to the athletics club after
Yeah.
school. So I really wasn't interested in that. And I do think there was a point when I thought, what do I really want? Do I really want a boyfriend? I don't think I really want a boyfriend.
Yeah.
You
Yep.
know, and I remember, I mean, this is a completely different subject, but I
Mhm.
still remember this to this day. We used to be allowed to go out of school at lunchtime, and
Mhm.
and the school was in London,
Yeah.
and we used to go to like this fish and chip shop,
Mhm.
and we used to walk through a graveyard to get there.
Sounds like here.
And I'll always remember,
Mhm.
oh, I'm thinking it was at the graveyard. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was on the field. But I remember all these girls, you know, all my old friends, they'd be lying there on the ground trying to look attractive to all these boys. And I'd be like, what is, really? Where's
we
my
used
friend? And, you know, it was
we
like
used
madness. It was madness.
we used to call that grave we used to call that gravestone rubbing.
Oh, and I was like, you know what? I'm just not like you. I just realized I wasn't like these people. I
Yeah.
wasn't like these girls. But I have to say that by the time I'd got into secondary school, a
Mhm.
lot had happened to me. I'd
Yeah.
been through a very traumatic time.
Mhm.
So I was a completely different girl than I was in my primary school.
Right.
So I was tough. I was a tough cookie. I had no control over my mouth. If I didn't like someone, I would tell them, I
Oh boy.
don't like you.
Oh, I couldn't do that.
Oh, I was, oh. Now, I know why. I know why, because
Yeah.
something had happened and it was
Mhm.
awful and it changed me.
Okay.
100% changed me. And it
Yeah.
changed me into a person that wouldn't take shit from anyone, and
Okay.
that included my peers. It also turned me into somebody, I mean, I've never been a part of a group, although people that know me, I know a few people that know me from back in the day, and they say that I had my own little group. I don't think I did. I
Yeah.
think what it was if I made a friend with somebody, I was very loyal to them even back then.
Yeah.
And if anyone was giving them grief, then I would fight for them. And so
Girl.
I
Wow.
was known as the girl in the home that
Mhm.
stood up to all the other kids who would bully some of the other girls in the home.
Mhm.
Or
Mhm.
some, yeah, just the girls. There was one girl in the home, her name was Maria, and she was, you know, she struggled,
Mhm.
and they used to pick on her big time.
Yeah.
I had so many fights for Maria, so many fights.
Good grief. My goodness. That was your identity though. That for whatever reason that got you there. You had I think you had more of an internal um maybe not even a struggle, but that shaped who you were physically, like you'll fight people. Like you're
Yes,
not going to hurt my friend and I'm going to kick your ass.
yes.
Okay. Yeah, no. I didn't do
I
that.
still
No.
remember that. I still
No kidding.
remember one, and this was in the primary school. No, this was in a middle school. I
Mhm.
still remember to this day.
Yeah.
One of the kids in the home came up to me and said, "That boy said this, that, and the other." And I said, "Point him out."
Oh my
And I
god.
remember running the length of the playground to get this
Mhm.
boy,
Oh
and
my
I fell
goodness.
over and I hurt my finger. So
God. Oh my god.
that's one of my memories.
Oh my god.
But I do have to say that it's because of what happened to me. You know, things can happen
Yes.
that change
that shapes us. That shapes who
Yeah.
we grow into, or part of our identity.
Yeah.
Whether you're closed off or you're really happy. But going to a co-ed school, life was quite a bit different here, although it was small classes and everything.
Mhm.
You are with the other sex all day. So your interactions from, let's say, 15 up, you're always trying to either, I was anyway, I was trying to get the attention of some boy.
Were you?
Yes, 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 I was. Because
I
I
wasn't.
didn't see no, I didn't see myself at that age, as a young teen anyway, of standing out in any way. There's so many beautiful girls. There's a lot of beautiful Irish girls, the
But
creamy
why did you
skin
have
and
to
blue eyes.
stand out? I don't understand that. Why
Yeah,
did you have to stand
it
out?
must have been my own ego, or the way I saw myself as just like not measuring up to anything. Like I didn't,
Hmm.
I needed some acknowledgement. Maybe it's validation of like, oh, you're pretty, or your outfit's nice or something. I guess I felt kind of invisible. I hated school, by the way. I
Did
hated
you?
high school. I hated it. And I was so insecure in high school, and I wasn't stupid, but boy, I really was stupid. I didn't care if I got a test right. I didn't care if I passed. I didn't care about any of it. It was just going through the motions. It was a struggle the whole time. But that was my identity. I felt invisible, and so I would try things to try and stand out, or put myself, like, okay, she's not the beauty queen. She's not the cheerleader, because in school everybody has a group. They do. They do. We're just, we're pack animals in a way. We don't have to, but most people want to belong to a group, even if it's three people. I did anyway. I needed to be identified as something, somewhere.
That is so fascinating for me
Isn't that,
because
it's weird though,
I
looking
really,
back, I'm not that anymore. But there's that
yeah,
part of me, me, there's that
yeah.
part of me that doesn't think that I measure up to anything.
Oh
It is. It's so, at
no,
this age, to still
that's
feel that
not
way about some
true
things.
though.
Pathetic.
I mean, it's not pathetic. It's not pathetic. It's just your makeup, and it's the same with
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
makeup. I
Yeah.
guess
Yeah.
I've always sort of been fairly confident, and I
Confident.
think,
Yes.
yeah, and fairly. I mean, I've had my struggles. Obviously, I'm mixed race, and
Yeah.
in
Right.
the first schools
Mm-hmm.
I went to, I was the only black face in the
Mm-hmm.
school, but it never really affected me
Yeah.
um, that badly. It affected me
Yeah.
more as I got older. But
Mm-hmm.
and I remember one of the worst fights I had, and that was when I was in secondary school, and it was against a black girl.
Mm-hmm.
They fight dirty.
Oh, God. I never
She
watched
had
girls
my
fight.
hair. She had my hair and was dragging me down, and
Oh my
I
God.
punched her. It was a real fight. And I thought afterwards, I thought, shit, I'm not doing that again.
Oh, Jesus. Oh my God.
And
Oh my God.
again, it wouldn't have been about me. Nobody
Yeah.
used, I can honestly say,
Mm-hmm.
nobody, I've never ever been bullied, ever. And I think it's probably because I had that certain, I don't know, certain self-confidence
Yeah.
about myself. As I said, for me, it was sport. And now I
Yeah.
look at it, I
Mm-hmm.
think that maybe I was left alone because I was sporty.
Could be. It could be they just saw you as like, well, usually people that get bullied
Yeah,
are seen as weaker, and they're an
yeah,
easy target. We see it all the time. They go for the low hanging fruit. They're going to point and bully that person that either doesn't have a voice, or they see them as weak. So those are the ones they're going to pick on.
yeah.
Now that I've told you a little bit about myself as an adult, I have never backed down from a bully. I don't care how tall they are. I don't care if it's a man or a woman. I will chest bump you until you start backing up. If they start with me, or anybody in my family, I go right over and my shoulders are back, and they are not going to get to me or anybody else I love. And I've done this to bikers.
Really? Good
Okay.
girl.
Great big, tall, strapping men there getting ready to get on their bike, and they're saying something to me, and I stand up and go right over to them, stand right in their face. I go, "What's that? Or is that all you have?" Now, not looking to fight, but if they're going to use words to try and say something to me, I'm not going to have it. But that's in person. Online is this is a whole different animal. Let's face it.
Different. We'll talk about that another time. But
Yeah.
I think when I was at school, I don't know, was I the only one fighting? I don't know.
Don't fight that Jan, boys. She'll kick your ass.
I think, you know, maybe another time I'll be more open about what I went through. But
Yeah.
I think I know the turning point.
Mhm.
And the turning point was a very bad time for me, because it was at the end of middle school going into secondary school.
Okay.
So I went into secondary school like
Chip on your shoulder.
I guess like a Rottweiler.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's okay.
But yeah, I haven't really looked at it that deeply before, but I think, as I said, sport was very important to me.
Mhm.
And at that particular time, I was allowed to enjoy that. I was allowed to make that my life.
That's amazing.
And
I'm so jealous of
so
that.
grateful for that, because I wonder what I would have done if it wasn't for my love of sport and latterly my love of music. In the home that I'm talking about, there was, if you imagine, there's a village, okay? In this village, there was at least, I think, 6 or 8 big houses.
Mhm.
Each of those houses is a children's home.
Oh my God.
Okay. Now,
All right.
it's cut off from the rest of the world. It's cut off from the village, from everyone. There's walls. No stranger can just walk into this village.
Okay.
It was called the village. Okay.
Wow.
Now, I was in one of these homes when I was like in secondary school. So it was the first time, well, yeah, I think, that we weren't bussed in. We had to find our own way to school. I used to run. I lived in a house where when I looked out of the window, I could see the bus at one bus stop, and and it would come down the road, do a left, and end up at the entrance to our homes. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
I would see the bus from there, and I would race it down to the bus stop. That's how fast I was. And
Wow.
I'd get that bus.
Now that's something. Damn.
But I can honestly say that in that home, we had our own swimming pool. We had our own, where each house had a day, a specific day in the week where we could go swimming. That's why I'm a good swimmer, because we used to go swimming in this swimming pool that we
It
had.
sounds pretty good, actually.
Yeah.
It's more than we had in a, you know.
That's how I learned to swim. That's how I nearly drowned a few times. That's
That's right.
That's
We
how
all
I
do
learned.
that.
But also,
Yeah.
we had all the time in the world to play in the grounds, and there was a lot of grounds.
That's so great.
That's where I played football a lot of the time. So even though I was in a school that I wasn't interested in the boys at all, there were lots of boys in the home that I was really friendly with because I played football with them.
Okay, so you had a different relationship with boys, and I think
Completely
maybe
different.
because I wasn't into sports. I was I would watch the guys play.
But you've had brothers, haven't you? Did you
One
not?
brother, just one brother.
Okay.
Yeah, just one, and he was a football star. in high
Oh,
school.
right.
My brother was a football star. So you can imagine I would get, and he's the youngest in the family. I'm the oldest, but I would get so terribly jealous. I'm like, well, he gets to be pushed forward. However, they think a man should get pushed forward. I saw this all those years ago. He was encouraged to do whatever he wanted to do, you know?
I think that's
Um,
awful,
I
Dee. I
know.
really think that's dreadful.
But also in the 70s, we'll just segue into this just because it popped in my head. Because it was the 70s, and I think in the beginning I said it was very casual. And, no prim and proper, although there were rules. The rules included that we could smoke in between classes. So
Yeah.
when the bell rang and you went to your next class, you could run outside. A cigarette took about 4 minutes. You smoke or take someone else's and smoke that. Call them
Yeah.
OPs, other people's, and then rush to your next class. Everybody smelled like cigarettes, and it didn't matter, But this was part of the culture back then.
How old
Everybody
were you
skipped
then in
school.
that time?
I would say it was like 16, 17.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And
We had
then,
like a smokers
oh
part,
yeah,
and I think that's the only group I had at school. I was
yeah,
one of the smokers.
I was too. I was a
Yeah.
smoker. Yeah, I
So
met friends outside. Yeah,
yeah.
And then the other part that I remember distinctly about the 70s, and I think about that even now, is that there's so much. There's LBGTQA. Um, things like that, acceptance for gay and trans and everything. I didn't know what trans was back then.
I knew
um
nothing.
yeah, it wasn't as out as it is now. Not that that would have mattered. What I was going to say is that we had gay friends at school. Guess what? Didn't matter. It didn't
Mm.
matter. Nobody cared what your sexuality was. Nobody cared. And I think I wonder why it went so hard the other way as an adult, like it was very anti-gay. I saw what happened, at Stonewall in New York in the 60s and things like that. That was a culture I didn't know anything about, but not knowing that culture, we still had friends. There were boys that liked boys, there were girls that liked girls. It didn't matter to anybody. Everybody was a friend. There was no like pointing or talking behind each other's back or whisperings about anything. It didn't matter. And that's how I grew up as a young adult. Wasn't important. It's just
Yeah.
who they were. It's just who they were.
From what I
And
can gather from my grandchildren,
mhm,
they're very accepting.
I
My
love it.
12-year-old
I'm
granddaughter,
delighted to
and
hear
even
it.
my younger one, how old is she now? 10, 11.
Yeah. Yeah.
They speak openly about
Isn't that
LGBTQ,
fantastic?
and they're very accepting of it. Now, I'm going to say something that's going to totally shock you. I
Okay.
knew nothing about it. I knew nothing. I went to college. I knew
Mm-hmm.
nothing about it then.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't find out about LGBTQ and trans
Mm-hmm.
and all this
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
until I was an adult,
Yeah,
which is
but
really strange when you say that you knew people like that. I
well,
didn't know.
we knew that there were boys that liked boys. They didn't openly hold hands or kiss or anything in school, but they would say, "Oh, that guy's really cute." Like just like
I didn't.
anybody that you're friends with. But it didn't matter. It wasn't a topic of fun or talking about. Now, maybe some of them did, but not my circle of friends. And the
Yeah,
people that I saw every day in high school, it just was never talked about. It just was.
that's
And
fascinating to me.
I'm glad it was like that,
That's
and
fascinating to me. I mean, I
yeah.
still sometimes I think, oh God, Jan, you're really old school, because sometimes I'm quite shocked at how much my grandchildren know.
Hmm.
And but if they talk about it, I talk about it as well with
Hmm.
them, and I love the fact that it's open, that we
Yeah,
can have conversations about it.
I do
They
too.
know about so much, and
Yeah.
I think that can only be a good thing, and
I
they
agree.
don't talk about it in a negative
Mhm.
way.
No.
It's like with Black Lives Matter.
Mhm.
Um, I can have conversations with them, and they're still so young, but they know about it. They
Yeah.
know what's going on in the world. They know about the atrocities in the world, not only about Black Lives Matter, but also about, LGBTQ
Right.
and less fortunate people. And I like to sit down, and every so often I'll feed them a bit of information because
Mhm.
I think it's important that they understand that they may have, quite a comfortable life. They do. They're
Yes.
lucky.
Yes.
But there are people out there that don't have a comfortable life, and
Mhm.
so I do speak to them. I'll say to them, "Oh, have you heard about, the war in the Ukraine?" And
Mhm.
they have heard about it.
Yeah.
And I think it's important not to shield them. And it's only in having this conversation with you now that I realize that perhaps I must have been shielded by all this because
I think so.
I didn't know anything.
Yeah.
Seriously, I didn't know. I didn't
Well,
know
I
about racism. I didn't know about,
no,
LGBTQ.
I knew about racism. That
Yeah.
I grew up. My father. He's been gone about 5 years now. Miss him terribly, but he was like an original Archie Bunker. He was racist. He was again very defined gender roles. He thought that blacks should stay with black, white should stay with white. He wasn't a white supremacist. I didn't even know what that
Mm,
was, but he had very and it's from the time he grew up in
yeah.
the Northeast. It's the time, and we understood that. But as I got older and as a teen, my friends would all come over and they would make fun of my father because he was unapologetically uh, very, the way he talked about things. He didn't
Yeah.
think that black boys should date white girls or black girls should date white boys. It was
Yeah.
very clear how he felt about that. And for me to grow up with that, he was never mean. He didn't, it's just it's what his internal dialogue was from the time he grew up in on a
Yeah.
very small island. But I grew up with a father like that. My mother was not like that.
Mhm.
But I grew up without any thoughts about separating races. I thought that was the most ridiculous thing he could say. And like I said, we all made fun of my father, like, Dad, what is wrong with you? That is so
Mhm.
ridiculous. And, go back to the 1800s or something. But this is how he
Mhm.
felt. But in spite of that, my whole family, my sisters and my brother, we grew up with the opposite of how
Mm.
he thought.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know if that was the 70s. I don't know if it was my mother's influence, but in my father's defense, they both, in the 70s, we were very involved in the community, meaning to say, we helped those. We grew up very probably lower middle class, is what it would be called now, but just average people in a
Yeah.
small town. My dad was very smart, but worked 3 jobs sometimes. We were always encouraged to help people that had less than us.
Mhm.
And so we were always put out there in the world and in the 70s, in our community to, distribute food or to help older people or to mow someone's lawn and all these things for free. We never asked for money, but we always were encouraged to help others.
Mhm.
And so, in spite of the way my dad was, he also taught me that,
Yeah.
and my sisters and my brother. So I may be considered, that person that maybe is giving. I was brought up that way.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
that's part of who I am. I don't attribute that to the 70s at all, but
I
opening
do
up a
feel that it was a certain mindset because I
Mhm.
remember sort of, yeah, I do sort of recognize that,
Mhm.
sort of, philosophy and that mind process.
Mhm.
Don't agree with it, obviously, but,
No.
yeah, I don't think he was so different to a lot of other people.
No. I
But it
agree.
kind of
Yeah.
reminds me of what I touched on and then completely forgot because I do go off on tangents. But I remember one incident when we had mixed with the boys
Mhm.
in this particular school, and I guess I was maybe 13, 14. And we were messing about on the field, and I think I must have thought, oh no, maybe I need to get myself a boyfriend, but I'm not really interested.
Yeah.
And there was a group of us. I was in like with a group of other girls, good-looking girls. One of them was so popular, she worked her way through just about every boy in the school. And
I knew the same girl.
I remember one day, yeah, her name was Jackie.
Yeah.
Jackie, her name was.
Yeah.
She was beautiful, long blonde hair, blue eyes. Yeah, all the boys loved her.
Right.
And but I don't remember feeling particularly bad about myself.
Mhm.
But I do remember this one occasion, we're lying there on a nice, hot, sunny day,
Yeah.
and somebody said to me, "Oh, Jan, there's a boy that really fancies you, and I think you should, maybe go out with him." And I'm
Yeah.
like, "Oh, I don't know if I can be bothered." And they said, "Oh, we're going to go and get him." And they came over with this guy who was as black as the ace of spades. I didn't know him from Adam. I didn't find him attractive, not because he was black, but because
You didn't
and
like
I was
him.
like, and I remember thinking, why are you assuming I'm going to like this guy because he's got
Well,
a black skin? And
stereotype.
I didn't say anything at the
Right.
time, but it kind of stuck with me, and I thought,
Yeah.
so are they expect? And the thing is, there wasn't that many black boys in the school, so it was
Right.
like, that's your choice, Dad. You're
Right.
having him. And
Right.
I was like, do you know what? I'm not sure if I really want this. I don't know. I prefer to play football. Forget
Right.
it.
Okay.
And I remember he was really keen, and it was like, no,
Yeah,
sorry.
no. Yeah.
Just because we've got the same color skin, it doesn't mean that
Yeah.
we need to be together, you
That's
know?
kind of, yeah, that's kind of stereotypical of like they
Very.
probably didn't even think about it. They're like, "Oh, there's that guy and he likes
Yeah,
Jan
yeah,
Solis." But
it's
yeah.
a black, and all my friends, some of them had boyfriends and some of them didn't. And do you know, have you heard of the English comedian called Mike Reed?
No.
Ah, I went to school with his daughter.
Mhm.
She was one of these that loved the boys as well. Skirt up her ass, and it's like, are you sure, Angie? Are you sure, girl? Yeah. I'm more like, well, when's sports day?
The girl in our the girl in our school that went through most of the boys, we'll say, uh, her nickname was Linda Lay. Isn't that terrible? Oh my
I think
God.
I know
I
why.
hate, oh my God. That poor thing.
Oh, well,
And
one of these girls used to, I mean, I
mhm,
knew a lot of people because I was a smoker.
yep,
And so you get
same.
to know,
Yes.
the
Yeah.
kids and that. And one of these girls, I'm not going to say which one it was, but she was going out with this guy, and they'd done the whole,
Yep.
caboodle, and I'm like, what?
I didn't have the nerve.
And it was like, yeah, well, yeah, he did this and he did that, and yeah, and I did this, and I'm like,
Oh my
well, I
God.
don't want to do that.
Yeah.
I'm not interested. And then when they brought over this guy who looked like he just got off the boat, I was like, no, no
Not
thanks.
not
Thanks
in a
for that.
million years. Oh my
No.
God. I got to tell you too.
Jesus.
We went to I've been to every 10-year high school reunion, and we had ours, I'll say 5 years ago was our last one. And, some of the older gentlemen, it's funny, you get there and you remember these people as teenagers. So you've got this picture in your head. You haven't seen them in 45 years. And
Yeah.
you meet these old men. You look at them, and you're like, it's some kind of realization, like, why are they so old? Well, because you're old too, Dee. And you have a few drinks at the reunion and you're chatting and everybody's giggling and laughing, maybe going outside, smoke some dope, and then come back in, just like high school.
Yeah.
And some of the guys would say, "Oh, Dee, I had such a crush on you in high school." I'm like, what? I thought nobody liked me. They're like, "Oh yeah, you reminded us of Natalie Wood, and we thought you were so cute." I'm like, Jesus Christ, you guys never said one goddamn thing to me. Why didn't you speak up?
If only they told you.
At 45 years later, when everybody's old and it doesn't make any difference. Do you know what I mean? I'm like, damn, you guys just never spoke up. What? I don't know, but that's how it shapes who you are. You're going through high school thinking, "Oh, I'm a loser. I don't look like anything. And, I don't fit in anywhere." That's how I saw myself. And here's these guys thinking, who were very popular guys. Yeah. And going, "Oh, we thought you were so cute." And I'm like, what?
Do you know what the sad thing is? If I had a school reunion, which I've never had, I don't think I'd even go to.
I got everyone.
The only ones that I'd remember is that black guy that I spent the rest of the year hiding from, and a couple of the girlfriends. That's it. I wouldn't remember anybody else.
Yeah, I don't know. School was so strange, but as a young person trying to find out who you are, heading into adulthood and how you're going to make your mark and where you're going to go to college, which I didn't do. And, I got married young and child young, and then your life takes off.
You didn't go to college?
I didn't. I took college courses, and I took very, business secretarial school. I did after I graduated high school, I took secretarial, I took business courses, but I didn't commit to college. Again, I was not encouraged to do that. I thought maybe I'd like to do English. I said, "Oh, when I go to college," then my parents would go, "English teachers don't make any money. So if that's what you want to do, don't bother." This is my parents now. It wasn't their fault. It wasn't their fault.
Make your parents have a word.
I didn't know. I ended up working for the government at the I won't say where, but anyway, it was for the government. And I needed a clearance. I mean, I was young, so I cleared everything, but I ended up working for the government. That's where I met my husband, and, life took off from there. But yeah, I didn't go to college. That's a regret of mine that I didn't further that. I think it would have opened me up and maybe given me some confidence as, I've got some brains and I can pass a test and, meet new people, and there's life outside this little town.
Do you know what I find fascinating about you? And I've said it, like, as soon as we became friends and I would talk to you, I cannot understand your lack of understanding what a special person you are. And you are a special person. And I cannot understand that. I can't, you should be, you already radiate such positivity out into the world. And I just think it's such a shame that you've grown up without, without having that inner positivity about yourself.
Well, we've talked about that, though. We've talked about that. You've told me that, and it's so kind. But I used to tell you, I think when we first became friends, I'm like, why would anybody listen to anything I had to say? And we've talked about that because I don't see that in myself. I don't see, I don't like my voice, and
you got a lovely voice.
I know, but does anyone like their own voice? I don't know. No, I'm not thinking.
I hate my voice. I hate it.
Yeah. I think that's normal. We don't like how we sound, but the other things, and certainly at this age, when we're older and we look older, and people say, "Oh, you look good for your age." Well, they could stop and just say you look good and stop talking.
True,
They don't. They're like, you look
That's
good. I
true.
almost feel like saying, yeah, I'm really 90. Don't I look great for my age? Like,
Yeah.
no. But yeah, that's another topic too. Yeah, we'll
You
get
know,
to that as well.
listen, girly, I mean it, and I don't, I don't BS. You
Yeah,
shine.
I know you don't.
You
Oh, you're so
shine,
sweet. You're so good for my
and
ego,
I
truly.
wouldn't say it if I didn't believe it, Dee.
I know.
You shine, girl.
Thank
And
you.
there's this part of me that's really angry that that you've gone through all those years of self-doubt.
Yeah, it's self-doubt. That's what it is. And I had it in high school too. That's probably where it began.
Well,
but yeah.
that's why I'm so glad we're doing this together, because
Yes.
you need a voice, girly, and your voice is beautiful as you are.
Well,
And anyway,
thank
before we go,
Okay.
let's just say what we would now tell our 13-year-old girl, our 13-year-old self,
Mm,
what advice we would give ourselves.
yeah.
Shall I start, or do you want to
Yes.
start?
Go ahead. Yeah. I'd love to know what you have to say. Love it.
I would say to my 13-year-old self, take every opportunity that's offered to you. And I'm not saying that I wasn't offered opportunities. I was, and I know I was offered opportunities that other people weren't offered. But I would still say to me, okay, you are going to grow up, right, doubting certain things, but you've got something about you that makes you strong, and you can shine. It doesn't matter what other people think of you. Just do what you're doing. Keep doing what you're doing. And for God's sake, stay away from men. That's what I would say to my 13-year-old self. Men will be the ruin of you.
Yeah, if I could look at my 13-year-old self, a little time capsule there, and go back to that, I would certainly tell myself, Dee, you're absolutely enough just the way you are. You are, I can't say beautiful, but you're so unique. And the things that you think you don't like about yourself are the exact reason that other people do like you. And you have something to contribute to the world that has nothing to do with how you look.
Yes.
And don't put so much emphasis or be so hard on yourself about how you look. Because in the end, even though, first impressions and all that, but going beyond that, you're smart, and you have talent, and you sew, and there's all these things that you do really well. And to reach for more than just what you see in front of you, reach for more than that.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of good things out there, and if you just sit home and you're by yourself or trying to fit in somewhere, there's other things to do and more to learn, and you're worth it. That's what I would say.
I love that. I love
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
So now you need to look in the mirror and you need to say that to yourself. All right.
Eek.
Get the 13-year-old. Right? Get the 13-year-old. Look in that bloody mirror and say it to yourself. Anyway.
Let me grab a wig.
Yeah, listen, it doesn't matter. Have faith in yourself.
Yes.
In yourself. Do you know, I thought it was a British thing that we don't take compliments very well. But I think you're very similar, because I quite often compliment you, because that's the type of person I am. If I like something, I'll tell somebody I like them. If I love somebody, I'll tell them I love you.
I think I do the same. I think I'm the same way. Yeah, but it's hard to take it back.
Yes.
It's hard to accept it if you're like, you don't mean it.
Yeah, exactly. I'm learning though, Dee. I'm learning. And if somebody says, "Oh, you look really good today," I'm like, "Oh, thanks." I've learned to say thanks.
Yep. We all like that.
And on that note, we want to thank you for listening to us again. just a general chit
Yes.
chat. If you've got any ideas for anything else you'd like us to ramble about, put it down in the comments. Otherwise, we're just going to ramble about whatever we want to ramble about. Isn't that
Yeah.
right, Dee?
That's right. And yeah, we'll talk about just about anything.
Yeah.
So if you guys have some ideas, leave them for us in the comments. And I'm so glad you were all here to listen to us go on and on. We love each other. We're friends. And I hope you guys can feel that too.
Yeah, absolutely. So, guys, we're going to see you in the next one, in the next podcast, and just wish you the very best. Live your best life. So, it's a goodbye from me, and it's a goodbye from.
Bye, everybody. Thanks for listening.
Take care of yourselves. Bye-bye.
Ciao. Bye-bye.
Bye, Dee.
Bye, honey.